Good morning, dear all. Welcome back to the class of maths. Today we will be starting with a new topic of data handling, that is how to represent the recorded data or how to organize the data and then to represent it in a graphical form. Okay, so today we will be studying about the graphical representation of data. All right. Now, basically, we know that we can formulate a data in a form of a table. Okay, we can record the data in a form of a table, which was known as tabulation of data. All right. Now, if a table is formed, if the data is represented in a tabular form, then how can we represent the data visually? Okay, or how can we show the representation, visual representation of a data? So the visual representation of data is shown by either a pie graph, histogram, bar graph, double bar graph. So all these things we are going to discuss in the upcoming classes. So today we will be taking one of the topic from these, that is bar graph. Okay, now what is bar graph? So obviously it is also a visual representation of a data. Okay, now let us go with the introduction. So in this, what we'll be discussing about the bar graph. Okay, and then what is double bar graph, then pie graph, histogram, the diagrammatic representation, and then the overall summary of the chapter. Okay, so again we will be going through first of all the bar graph. So if I ask you what is bar graph, so already I told you the meaning of bar graph, that whenever a data is to be represented graphically or visually, then we consider it in a form of a bar graph. So here some of the examples are there. Okay, how to represent the graphical representation of a data. For example, the number of cricketers playing, the number of musicians playing, and then the number of butterflies in a garden. So the record of all these numbers, the number of players, the number of musicians, or the number of butterflies in the garden. So all this recorded form gives you the numerical form of data. So now in the class, let us see how many students are having this particular height. So this is the data for the 10 students with the respective heights. So the data which is given was in the form of a random data. Now we have organized this data and we have arranged it systematically as per the class and as per the names, then we have categorized. So this is how the sports played by the 7th class students, how many loves this baseball, okay, then football, then sorcery, then hockey, then basketball and all. And this is how we represent the number of students, okay, those who were present on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or absent on Monday, Tuesday. So any data we can record and we can represent it in a form of a table. The same data can also be represented in a pictorial form, which is known as bar graph. Okay, so now let us understand how we will draw a bar graph for any given data. Okay, so some of the key points that you need to understand is write the title of the graph. Title of the graph means regarding what we are going to make a graph. What should be the title, appropriate title for the graph? Like when we are going to record the number of absentees of a class, so we have to write the title, that is number of absentees of class this. Okay. So the next is draw two mutually perpendicular lines. So we have to make two axes along which we have to represent the information. So these lines should be mutually perpendicular. One should be vertical, the other one should be horizontal, such that they are mutually perpendicular to each other, and we call it as axis. So we will regard it as either a y-axis or x-axis. Then third is determine which axis will be the frequency axis, that is determine whether the bar will go horizontally or vertically. Now we have to name the axis on the basis of the observations which is given. Okay, so it is up to you whether you consider x-axis as the frequency axis or the y-axis as per the frequency axis, because when we go in the drawing of the bar graph, we usually draw the bar graph along the frequency axis. Okay, if the frequency will be taken along y-axis, then the graphs will be vertically. If the frequency is taken along horizontal axis, then the bar will be horizontally. So depending upon the axis on which we are taking the frequency, we will determine or we can categorize the bar graph as a vertical bar graph or horizontal bar graph. Alright, then write labels for both the axes. We will represent it where we are writing, what is the labeling, what is the label that has to be given along the x-axis, where is to be frequency, where should be the class mark or the class interval or the given observation about which we have to draw the graph. So all those things we have to label along the axis. Then for the frequency axis, determine the scale interval. Yes, we have to determine the scale for a particular axis. Like if we are taking a gap of one block from the graph, then what that one block represents. Okay, if we are taking a gap of 2 block or 3 block, so what is the range we are considering the one block to be. So all those scalings we have to do for both the axes. Okay, now use the data from the table, and the same data, by using the same data, we have to represent the bar graph. We have to keep one thing in mind, that along x-axis, whatever the width or the gap between the two bar graph we are taking, that should be the same, or that should be uniform. All right. Then let us have an example. Okay, this table shows the number of students in a school who wear a certain shoe size, and now we have to plot the graph related to this table. The shoe size is given and the number of students is given. Okay, then we have to plot the graph. So the number of students, this is frequency. Okay, and this is the given observation along which the frequency is calculated. Now first we have to write the title, and the title here is shoe size of the students of the school. So title is done now. Now we will draw two axes which are mutually perpendicular. So can you see these two axes which is mutually perpendicular? So now we have to select along which axis we will mark the frequency. So here along x-axis we are marking the shoe size, and the frequency we are marking along the y-axis. Now corresponding to each shoe size we will mark it on the basis of the table. We have to keep in mind that the width and the gap, that should be same for all the graph. Okay, that should be same for all the graph. Then let us go with one more example. This table shows the number of people who read different newspaper. Okay, so we will have a different newspaper. Okay, so here is the newspaper, and here is the number of people who go through these newspaper. So again we will take one axis for the newspaper and the other axis for the number of people. So again we have to verify, we have to see along which axis we are taking the number of people or the frequency. Alright, so here again let us go with the solution. So here we have written the title, and then we have made two mutually perpendicular axes. The number of people or the frequency is plotted along the y-axis, and along the x-axis we have named the newspapers, and along each different newspaper, with respect to each different newspaper, we have plotted the frequency or the graph along the frequency table. So when the frequency is taken along y-axis, the graph formed is vertical. Alright, so let us take one more example with the horizontal graph. Okay, so let us take one example with the horizontal graph, and here we have the vertical. Now let us go with the horizontal. Here the students in the class voted for their favorite fruit. Okay, the fruit is given, and the number of students, those who are liking that fruit, or the number of students who likes the fruit. So in such a way we have collected the data, and here the fruits are given and the number of students or the people, those who are liking it. Okay, so now let us construct the graph to display the information. So here the title, again first of all the title, students vote for their favorite food. Okay, then two axes will be drawn. Okay, and we have to consider, now see in this case along the x-axis we have taken the number of students. Now in this case the frequency is taken along the x-axis, and the fruits are plotted along the y-axis. Now corresponding to each fruit and with respect to the frequency we have drawn the graph, and in this case what we have seen that the graphs are horizontal. Okay, now let us take one more example, and this is simply to test your knowledge. Here the graphs are given. Okay, the bar graph is given, and you have to answer it accordingly by looking into the graph very carefully. And what it is asking is, the table is given and you have to tell the period in which the increase in the number of girl child from its preceding period is minimum. Okay, now see along the x-axis the range or the periods or the year is given, and along the y-axis the frequency is given. First let us go with this year to this year, from 2 2001 to 2002 it is 100, then 2002 to 2004 it is 200. So what is the increment here? 100. Okay. Now between these two the increment is 50. Between these two the increment is again 50, and between these two the increment is 20. So you have to take in which range of interval the increment is minimum when we compare it with the preceding year. Obviously, here it is 100, here it is 50, here it is 50. So, in this range, the increment of the girl child is minimum, which is 20. So, in the year 2008 to 2010, the increment is minimum if I compare it with respect to the preceding year. In the preceding year, it was 300, now it is 320. So, only 20 number of girls have increased, okay, from the preceding year. So this is how you have to read the graph, and basis of the graph you have to read the given, or you have to answer the given question which is asked. Okay, I hope you understood the video. Alright, do try to link it with the notes which is given in the book. Try to understand with the help of the given video, relating it with the book, and if in case any doubt, do reach your subject teacher. Thank you.